Hi everyone, I want to show you the Wave of Light Monk that is projected to be the best solo pushing build of Season 27 right now, or at the very least, very close to the top. There is in fact a Paragon 1300, 150 solo clear with a pretty good time already on the leaderboards. So it is very strong, it has remained one of the strongest builds in the game, and it does get a pretty powerful seasonal theme effect, which are those bells that you can see here. Now they are right now also a little bit buggy and potentially weaker than it should be. And they have another issue that they are lagging out the game a little bit, which you're going to see in a moment in the runs. But in general, this is a very powerful build. It's an old build, so this hasn't really changed in a while. And it got massively buffed on the inner rework back in Season 24, when more of the Mystic Ally items were introduced that buff also the Rabid Strike clone, the offhand weapon here. So I didn't really roll like even insane gear or anything like that. I just like tried to craft some, mostly basic ancient items. Didn't really have right affix rolls and all that stuff. Went in there into a GR 140 and I basically had no trouble clearing it. Personally, I've played this build quite a lot already, especially back in Season 24 when it was freshly buffed. And back then it was also one of the strongest builds, as I had just mentioned. With the ethereal weapons, I was also able to clear a GR 150 solo. But that was after an insane amount of attempts, like 3000 keys, and I was Paragon over 3000 with really good gear on softcore. So now times have changed a little bit, and you can walk in there in those higher tiers and these bells are annihilating. So typically you attack with the bell, with the wave of light exploding in all directions, and then your clone also does the same attack. And the only attack that matters is your clone. It does like 98% of the damage. And here you instead spawn these bells and they are like dormant until you hit them with another skill. So you cast Wave of Light 4 times to summon 7 bells, 4 of which will be from your clone, and then you use Cyclone Strike to detonate them. And you do this like 2-3 times in a row. They seem to have like a random amount of like hits that they can take. And every time you hit them, they will explode essentially for the same attack. So you get way more attacks out of those bells than usually. It is actually a fairly interesting concept. I kind of like it. And especially for someone who has played this build in the past, this is definitely, something new to play around with. The visuals are amazing. I really like those bells. They look pretty cool. And, it's like the bomb waiting to go off and just annihilate the entire pack that you're fighting. And it definitely has that really strong, impactful feel to it with all these explosions going off at the same time. Obviously, the lag is a bit of an issue, but overall, very strong build, very fun, but also quite tough to play. I know a lot of people will have trouble with this, so you need to have basically perfect cooldown reduction everywhere, and even so, you have to manage your cooldowns rather well with Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. I'm not going to cover the entire build in detail now, so you can watch my old guide if you want. It's mostly unchanged from that, just the rotation is a bit different, and read it up on max roll as well if you want. So here I mostly want to focus on this like seasonal power. Right now there's also some bugs with it. So for example, sometimes they just become like invincible and they just don't explode. So that's kind of weird and you have to like resummon them. So some of them are actually not really going off properly, which does actually decrease the power of the seasonal theme a little bit. And that's kind of funny considering that this is most likely the strongest build right now. There's also some other funny stuff going on, like these bells actually count as enemies, so that when you destroy them, you can actually spawn Oculus Rings, you can get life per kill procs, you can get Archon stacks for a wizard in your team. So it does actually have some potential like a group implications where you can combine this with Light Monk with some other Rift Guardian killer that suddenly gets Oculus Rings all the time and is way more powerful than usual. And also in your solo pushes, you do get Oculus Rings way more easily. So they're basically there all the time, even at the start of a pull when you're not even killing anything. I'm gonna wait for the PTR update to see if there's any changes to this. I think it's kind of likely that at least those like on-kill effects might be fixed. And maybe also those other bugs like the invincible bells might be fixed. But overall, it is really cool. And even if I've played this build before, I'm most likely going to do it again. Simply because it's amazing to try out this new challenge with this build, and it's very powerful, of course. So that can make for some really cool 150 push, I guess. Personally, I found it kind of weird that Blizzard chose to buff this build in particular, because it is so strong already. But okay, here we are, and now we will have an even stronger Wave of Light build. My recommendation would be to maybe reduce the maximum amount of bells from 7 to 5, so that the rotation becomes a bit easier, especially for people that have trouble managing their cooldowns a bit, because this will allow you to do more Cyclone Strikes that proc Zodiac and not cast the bell so much. And at the same time, it will reduce the lag a little bit. So the lag is definitely quite an issue in those larger pulls. So you can see this very clearly in this clip here, for example. And it's just a bit too much, even for PTR standards. Especially if you want to try to take this build into a group where you have even more monsters on the screen and everything has to be synced with 4 people. It's just going to be a disaster. And it also wouldn't really take away much from the build's power, which is extremely high. So those are my thoughts about this Wave of Light power and Wave of Light Monk in Season 27. Personally, I'm really looking forward to it. So Monks have really strong builds still, even with Inner being nerfed. Inner will remain the T60 build, most likely the Bounty build, and also one of the solo BGR builds. So yeah, even with the nerf, it was just so good. And then you have this build, which is just really nice, really high potential for pushing if you want to go all the way to 150. This is what I had to share here for now. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think about the Monk in Season 27. What are your plans? Subscribe for more Diablo content, and I'll see you guys next time.